All right, we'll get started yep. We'll get started, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the Minnesota Shade Tree Advisory Committee's forum for the month. MinStack is affectionately what we call ourselves. And this month we have a very exciting speaker, Gary Wyatt, who is an extension educator with the University of Minnesota, here to talk about some really great things with food forests and beyond. Just a couple things. I'll put a few links in the chat as we go along, as Gary mentions resources, or I'll put our website. We do a weekly newsletter that you can sign up for with events and job postings and trivia, things like that. So I'll put a link in the chat if you're new to this forum and MinStack process. Otherwise, Gary, you can start sharing your screen and we'll get started.
Okay.
And I'll answer, for those of you with questions, I'll answer as I can in the chat. Otherwise, we'll save it to the end for Gary.
Is that full screen, Sonia?
You look beautiful.
Great. Thanks. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. And you may have heard a little bit of my talk in the Shade Tree Short Course a few years ago. I think it was maybe 3 years ago. I was on the schedule and talked 2 days there at Shade Tree Short Course about this similar topic of a food forest and maybe fruit and nuts that we can plant in our backyard or community. So some of you might see some similar slides, but I've got some new ones to show you too. So let's get started. I want to introduce the whole slides presentation with our fact sheet that Sonia helped with actually with Brandon Miller, and he's our extension horticulturalist at the Arboretum at the University of Minnesota. And then Madeline Wimmer is down at Rochester, and she's one of our extension specialists in hort. And we revised this. This was a number of years ago. I put something together on edible fact sheet, basically. Well, not edible fact sheet, but on fruits and nuts and so forth. Yeah, just hand out at State Fair. I'm usually on 3 stages at State Fair, talking about fruits and nuts for your backyard or woodlands. But this is a real nice publication. That's a PDF. Extension does not right now have online PDF functions for printing. So just email Sonia or myself and we'll send one out to you for sure. So here's my outline for today. Certainly we want to start out with one slide on native plant communities and classification with the DNR. Agroforestry, for some of you that don't know what that is. I'm an agroforester, basically with Extension. I teach 5 practices of agroforestry to mainly our soil water conservation district people. That's the SWCDs in each county, or Natural Resource Conservation Service people, which is a federal agency that helps farmers with tree planting and so forth. Yeah, we'll talk about a riparian forest buffer that was planted with edibles down in Rock County. And then we'll talk about some community food forests in Minnesota with Laverne in Rock County, and then certainly some around the Twin Cities, and then Moorhead. And then we'll talk about a little bit of some of the food forests around the country with Catherine Burkowski. She's for Virginia Tech student years ago and developed a book on community food forests that if you're interested in community food forests, that's a great little handbook that she developed. And then we'll talk about certainly end with plants that produce fruits and nuts in Minnesota, maybe some new plants that you want to try. And I've got some nurseries that I think might be good to try. Actually, the Iowa DNR Forest Nursery has some trees that we can try in southern Minnesota, certainly. And then also a canopy nursery out of Wisconsin. And we'll talk about some other resources as well. So the native plant communities, if you've never gone to this site, if you have any property at all or want to search for what was around maybe in the early settler years or so forth of this country, it's really nice to look at the plants and understory plants that should be there in your location anywhere in the state of Minnesota. It's really a nice website, and I urge people to go there just to look and see what was growing in your landscape years ago, many years ago. Oh, there's another slide there too. So the 5 agroforestry practices. The intentional combining of agriculture and working trees to create sustainable farming systems. Silvopasture is grazing livestock under a forest system, or like I've done in St. James, Minnesota, where I live, just on a 10-acre demonstration farm, if you will. I've planted chestnut trees on an open pasture. So that's silvopasture as well, as you're managing three resources. You're managing livestock, the understory, and then trees. Alley cropping is simply alley cropping, maybe with some crop trees, maybe black walnuts, and maybe you've got an annual crop of corn or soybeans in the middle. I've seen hazelnuts on the sides of asparagus in the alley. So in Wisconsin, so that's an alley cropping system. Windbreaks is probably the most popular agroforestry practice in Minnesota, especially western Minnesota and southwestern Minnesota, where we do have wind in the wintertime and obviously blowing and drifting snow. And then repairing forest buffers is planting trees around waterways and ditches and so forth, and that type of thing. And then the forest farming is kind of a spin-off on forest farming and food forest. Basically, forest farming is basically working with your understory plants. If you've got a leeks area, a habitat that grows some of the medicinals that people are interested in, or you're interested in, and managing that woodland to the canopy, thinning it out and so forth to manage and grow those types of different non-timber forest products. So forest farming is the intentional manipulation and integration and intensive management of woodlands that capitalize on specific plant interactions to produce non-timber forest products. And here you see there's maple syrup, certainly, in the tapping of the trees down below there. North of or above that picture is straw, pine straw. That could be done in Minnesota or mainly probably southern part of the states that have pine plantations and so forth. In the middle is ginseng or other mushrooms that can be log propagated and spawned. Then you have medicinals, ginseng and golden cohosh and a lot of different medicinals that can be grown in understory type canopy. So I just want to show you a few pictures of productive dip buffer we did a few years ago, actually 2018. Probably should have done that in 2015. Many of you probably remember Governor Dayton had the buffer law that mandated a buffer of ditches, 16 and a half feet, I think, for ditches, and then 50 feet for waterways or rivers and streams that farmers had to plant some type of a buffer system. So we planted different edibles. Excuse me, I'll use the term edibles maybe randomly, but I'm talking about fruits and nuts from various shrubs and so forth. So here's the planting that we did in down there in Rock County. So if you're ever going to Sioux Falls or South Dakota on I-90, I'd urge you to stop at Laverne, Minnesota, and they have a Prairie Alley food forest there. And right below that, we have a buffer demonstration area. And we demonstrated actually two plantings. For the 16.5-foot buffer, we did a single row of these plantings. And then for the 50-foot buffer, we did a 4-row planting of American plum, cranberry, Nanking cherry, black chokeberry or Ernie berry, as some people call them, hazelnut, elderberry, and then Juneberry, serviceberry. And Juneberry, serviceberry, Saskatoon, all synonymous as we talk about that type of shrub. And then honeyberries were also planted as well. Go. May 20, the photograph was taken May of 2021. This was planted in 2018. So we did chicken wire almost everything because it's in a lower area and it does get deer browsing. I think I've got a few other pictures there. I think the chicken wire is removed now and those plants are fairly rigorously growing. I thought I may not have a close-up of the picture. Actually, we had elderberries and hazelnuts almost the first year that we planted that planting. We had some bigger plants, some two-gallon pots that we planted there, and yeah, and that's again the schematics of our plan there. Okay, we want to get into some examples of Minnesota food forest and the United States. The community food forest is basically trees and shrubs producing fruits and nuts, plus annual or perennial vegetables, maybe for a community or even backyard people. So you think about this topic, certainly you can use all these plants in your backyard as well as a community food forest. So some fruits are high maintenance, obviously apples. So you may have to have plans for either, yeah, maybe spraying or non-spraying. You have to develop that type of plan for that community food forest. High maintenance trees and shrubs may need the volunteers to adopt the sites. Master gardeners, master naturalists, and those types of things. Tree advocates, we'll talk about them a little bit later. Policies need to be created about the public harvest. Some allow just the volunteers that help with the food forest to harvest things, fruits and nuts, and then others are open to the public, planted on public or private property. So if you talk about little vegetables, perennial vegetables would be the rhubarb and asparagus and strawberries there. The woodies are basically apple trees and the fruit trees, and there's a aronia berry there that's a little larger than normal. So the benefits of these urban landscapes that are planted to community food forest, or they might have different green infrastructures that certainly can be planted to fruits and nuts for shrubs and trees. Community food forest and gardens, riparian food floodplain areas, community windbreaks. I'm encouraging, as our agroforestry practice, we talk about windbreaks all the time with my clientele, with SWCD and so forth. I encourage hazelnuts and service berries or June berries to be planted in a shrub row of windbreaks. Why not make it eligible for wildlife and humans to be benefit from these plantings as well? Wildlife corridors, pollinator gardens, retaining stormwater, phytoremediation areas. Obviously, those probably not so much for non-edibles. Probably you don't want edibles to be in a filtration or mediation type area that's filtrating either oils or whatever's from the soil that might be toxic to the edibles, but certainly could be decoratives, could be flowers maybe and so forth. Yeah, so that's something to think about. So this is the Project Food Forest down at Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And they helped with the design of the food forest in Rock County. Here's the design here. I think I've got some pictures that are a little bit bigger than this, so you can see what the what produce and what the fruits and nuts are planted. Prairie Alley on Facebook is their name. And so this is north and south. It follows a state trail that goes out of town to one of the state parks there. Serviceberry, elderberry, shade tolerant. You see that dark line there? That's a shade garden because there's trees on the right-hand side or on the east side of that planting of that map there. You see the hazelnuts and Nanking cherry and mulberries and different plants there. Here's the south side of that particular planting in Rock County in Laverne, Minnesota. Plums and pears and apples. And yeah, I'll show you some other. Oh, they got a persimmon there too as well. So here's the kiosk that you start with. Actually, they have a little parking lot that's really north of the city-owned unit there, a maintenance barn basically for the city. But this is on private land, and this particular person is Kim Rockman, and she decided and talked to her family to see if we could do this, and she made it a public food forest. Pretty cool. There's a handout there too. There you see the maintenance garage for the city of Laverne, and this property is just north of that. They planted apple trees in these locations and obviously pinned them up for deer protection. Here's the signage later on the last couple of years, and then you see some benches maybe along there along the city trail that goes north. This is south looking north. There's the apple orchard there on the south part of the property. And there you see some signage there and some bulletins. People are able to take bulletins to distinguish what the plants are and so forth. As we get into the food forest, it's a northern strip basically, and they have mulched very nicely. And there you see the shade strip there, and there's a mow strip in between there. This is the north looking south. So it is a long stretch, but they've mulched all the shrubbery and obviously caged what needs to be caged for rabbits and deer predation. And right to the right or left of this picture, where the person is down the slope there is the buffer area, the productive buffer that we planted a demonstration site there. We did put some signs up for most of the plants there. So this was a plum, and we put some nutritional value and then some type of habitat for each plant as well. Here's their website, Prairie Alley Outdoor Center. And then we do have some educational material, an article on the Z-Link on our extension website. It's basically U of M Food Forest, and it goes into this discussion. And we did have the regional partnerships help with this development and planting and some of the fees and some of the costs involved in the fencing and the plants themselves. They helped with funding that, our regional partnerships. Real quickly, I want to get into some of the local ones, the fruits of the city in Roseville. And Patty Sullivan is part of this city management. And she's a manager of this particular landscape and food forest and located in Roseville. And I have not been to the site, but I wanted to go there. I just talked to her last week and got some more pictures. So we'll show you some more pictures. So the area is fenced and locked. The orchard is on the west end of the Arboretum in the maintenance area, and will typically be locked Monday through Friday during the growing season, and then be open when the staff is present. So there's a really nice sign there at the Roseville Community Orchard, and I think they may have some public gardens there, plots available for the public as well. But I like the signage, and I think signage is very good at these food forests, and just to talk about what's available. Here are the herb and vegetable beds, plus a table area for resting and just communicating with neighbors and so forth. And just a really nice area there to commute and talk to each other and do some maintenance and then pick some fruit and nuts. Apple and cherry and plum trees there. And apples, grapes, and plums, and they donate the extra fruit to the local food shelf or food relief area that is taking these particular produce and distributing them through the community, which is really nice. And I just post these pictures. Patty sent me one of these pictures, and so the far left is her pictures from the food forest in Roseville, and the other two pictures to the right are my photographs from my apple trees that are huge and about as big as hers, it looks like. And the rabbits, I thought these particular apple trees reached a point of non-palatability for rabbits, but I was wrong. So this, the center picture is a zest star. It's about 40 feet tall and probably 15 inches in diameter. I think there's a pin located at the bottom of that picture at the base of the trunk there. But yeah, I had two apple trees. There's another Honeycrisp back here that was annihilated too. I'm hoping they survived, but I'm doubtful. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. But anyway, back to looking at older apple trees, we probably still need to have hardware cloth or chicken wire, some type of protection around some of our older apple trees that we think might not be attacked by the rabbits, but some of these winters that we had an open winter this winter and they needed some food, so they tried these older apple trees that probably didn't taste good, but they needed something. But we need to probably protect those older trees into maturity. A couple other ones around the Twin Cities. This is the Adams Grove Community Orchard, which is really neat. They've got some peach and apricots and apple and crabapple and plum plantings there, and some cherries and some pears and some yeah, service berries. It's really a neat little triangle. Yeah, so communities might have these triangles that are mowed 3 or 4 times a week. And maybe you can maybe develop some type of food forest, just a corner, 3 corners of those triangles, and maybe make an asparagus rhubarb bed on one end, and maybe a hazelnut on one end, and then a serviceberry on the other corner. So be thinking about some of these landscapes that could benefit from a neighborhood food forest. This is one in Calgary, Canada, very well drafted from a landscape architecture diagram here, but has different fruits and trees there as well. This is Moorhead, Minnesota's food forest, and again, different plums and ronia berry, chestnut, crab, and apples, and many apple trees, mostly actually, in this particular landscape. I just had an email from Kelly from Rochester, and she's a master gardener down there that manages the Slattery Park in Rochester. And those in the box are apple trees. And they just had a pruning session, I think, this winter, and then maybe a cleanup area or cleanup time just recently. This is a diagram from the North Dakota Orchard publication. I'll show you that a little bit later in the presentation, but I thought it was really interesting, and basically how to design maybe a community food forest. And certainly you need to consider shade, full sun, because most of these plants might require full sun. There's some that may be shade tolerant, so you need to be aware of that. Pollinator distance for pollinating these plants. Some of the shrubs need to, or trees need to have a pollinator. Need a different species and so forth. Cluster of plants, mixed cluster of plants, spacing between plants is good. Probably more than really close in, because you want people to walk around the plants and obviously give air movement for disease control and so forth. Protection from critters is a big thing. Weed control, you want to weed control these areas, and then obviously apply mulch. And remember the volcano type mulch, that you don't want to mulch up to the trunk. You want to have that trunk not exposed to mulch clear down to the soil, but mulch is great outside the perimeter of the root zone and so forth, the trunk. Perimeter fencing for deer and people, and signage is always good. We'll talk about this. I think, well, here the map is apples on one end. Here's pears in the middle, raspberries, grapes, crabapple, cherry, apricot, plum, Juneberries over here on the south side here. Some flowers, some pollinators, maybe some Juneberry again, plum and grape on these sides too. Pretty neat little diagram, but an example of how you can lay out a food forest. Community Food Forest, this is a project from Catherine Burkowski from Virginia Tech. Years ago, she was a graduate student there and developed a book that is pretty popular for food forest. So here's Bloomington, Indiana. And you'll see that some of these, this is Seattle, Washington. Some of these are managed or maybe not managed well, or for weed control and so forth. They got some signage and different things. Here's a Weatherby Food Forest at Iowa City, Iowa, in 2014. Here's some asparagus. Looks like some strawberries maybe there too in this particular food forest. And you see some fencing both inside and outside. There's some chairs there in this location. So if you have deer or human type fencing that you need to fence off, you have to do that. And then you have to even fence in between the fencing itself for predators and so forth that might girdle the tree, rabbits and deer especially. So this is a edible food for snack garden. I like the signage, isn't that something? And a lot of these do go into the different, almost the permaculture type 7 layers or whatever of the food that can be done. But this is a nice little display of what's in the food forest there, and kind of a snack garden. I thought it was pretty cool. Another signage on the public park for education for all, sustainable agriculture, permaculture, food forest, and seed saving garden. And then they have their Facebook website there as well. Here's a Roger Williams Park edible forest garden, and this is in Rhode Island, and has some signage there with the master gardeners and so forth. So this is really interesting. So what do you think? And maybe people can do the chat if you want. What do you think these different blocks have, or either are saying, or why the different blocks of this? And this is actually talking about the understory microfauna and organisms, microorganisms in the soil that benefit the trees and so forth. But I thought this was a really interesting sign. Tell me if anybody has anything in the chat, or you can speak up if you'd like. Unmute yourself if you can do that. What are these different panels either saying, or why have the different panels there? Anybody? Sonia, you can say a little.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely something about mycelium and fungal connections.
Okay, good.
Plants. interact.
Do you notice these 4 templates on the side? Are they the same fonts? I know it's hard to see, but what do you think they're different? They are different. Those 4 panels are different. They're probably saying the same thing, but what do you think they are?
Beth wrote in the chat that they're different languages.
Yes, yes, yes. So if you have a culture, you have a community that has different cultures in the community, be mindful of yes, language differentials and signage that you'll have to maybe have Hmong or have Spanish or whatever, different languages. And gosh, I don't even know, some of this might be Chinese or Japanese fonts there. But yeah, be mindful of your culture and your neighbors and your signage in your area. I thought that was very cool. So here's our publication from North Dakota State University that put together starting a community orchard in North Dakota. So there's the Z link to get to that publication if you want. Here's a copy of our honeyberry basically poster and that signage that we put near the plant itself. So there you have the health benefits and then some of the harvesting type of times maybe that would be harvested. It's certainly a early mid-season, well, June type of planting or fruit that you can harvest in June, just like the June berry and service berries. But those are really good, and that's a great resource for you too as well. So this is the Community Food Forest website that is managed by Catherine Bukowski. And I can share you a PDF of my slides certainly later if you'd like. And this is their Facebook, facebook.com Community Food Forest. And that's the linkage there. And we have volunteers in Minnesota that can help manage these properties and help the city. Certainly have to follow city rules and so forth, but master gardeners, master naturalists, tree care advisors or advocates are around, and those are great volunteers that are almost looking for things to do too. So here's a backyard calendar. So here we see Haskap is the honeyberries, Saskatoon, Juneberries, service berries, strawberries throughout the season, plums, apples toward the end of the season, raspberries maybe mid-season, and sour cherries and grapes. So just a pictorial of maybe a calendar of maybe fruits and nuts that might be available. So we talk about during COVID, we had some Zooms on edibles in your driveway, okay, and your backyard. Dandelion, plantain, violets, stinging nettles. I know that doesn't sound real appetizing. There's stinging nettles here. And then violets, a lot of lamb's quarter, purslane, red clover, curly dock. Obviously, our perennials are rhubarb and asparagus, certainly. But yeah, you may want to consider some of these being in a garden that people can try. Certainly, we won't get into too much apples. I do have some slides on apples, I guess, coming up, but not grapes. But we have some excellent University of Minnesota websites on apples and grapes and sort of. So there's tons of berries native to Upper Midwest. I think this is from my foraging slides, maybe the June berries, the strawberries, the plums, the cherries, and gooseberries, and rose hips, and all kinds of thimbleberries and loganberries and those. And certainly they vary across the state of where they're most native, high bush cranberry and so forth. And some are not in the southern part of the state, and maybe some are more in the northern part of the state. So we're getting into maybe different plants now too. So here's 1990 hardiness zone, 2006, and then 2023. And we now have zone 5 in Minnesota, which is really, really amazing that we've increased from maybe a 2-zone state to maybe 3 or 4-zone state in 2023. So we're looking at warmer climates in Minnesota in the future. So real quickly, apples, certainly there's many different varieties. I think I've got some slides maybe on different apples coming up, but talk to an orchard in your area. If you're looking at well, planting an apple tree and seeing what grows best in your location. Okay, here's some newer ones, and actually they're not much new anymore. So, First Kiss and Sweet Tango, only by orchards. You can't buy these trees, I don't think, as a personal orchard in your backyard. You cannot purchase these. And here's some other ones here, Beacon and Centennial Crab, First Kiss, and the season of when they're coming into to harvest. Zestar, Sweet Tango, and State Fair. Some mid-season chestnut crab. I love chestnut crabs. I think the rabbits killed one of my chestnut crabs a couple years ago. Triumph, I think I did see Triumph in a nursery just recently this year already. So maybe that's available for homeowners now. Here's September to October, obviously our honey gold and frostbite and some of those newer varieties, snow sweet, but yeah, later season. Fireside. And then the pears. So I got this information from some of our horticultural specialists. Summer Crisp, I did see at the nursery, one of the ones that I looked at recently. Parker was there. And I think Juicy Jewel was also there. So some of those to look at. And then we have some excellent websites for these. And I've always heard good things about the dwarf bushes. Maybe anybody that has any experience about those, Romeo and Juliet, I think they're hard to come by, but maybe if you find a nursery that has those, maybe you can put those in the chat for me, right? Okay. Serviceberry, Juneberry, Saskatoons, all synonymous. There's some tree types and shrub types, so you want to be aware of that. I always go for the shrub type. I do have a tree type, but the rabbits got a hold of that a couple of years ago with our deep snow and got over the chicken wire. But if you have kids or grandkids or just want to eat something fresh off the vine or off the plant, Juneberries are probably the sweetest berry that you can pick besides blueberries up north. I would recommend a shrub type, blueberry, serviceberry. And back to that, I usually recommend two different plants. I recommend hazelnut to make your own Nutella, and then serviceberry, Juneberry, Saskatoon. Just one of those, yeah, shrub those two shrubs are just excellent to have in your backyard or front yard for that matter. Currants, there's lots of currants there. These are pictures of mine. I don't do a lot with them. They're very bitter, obviously off the plant, but you're making jams and jellies out of them. And they're very nice to have as well in your garden. American plum, I'm finding my American plum are very hard and not as edible as I had thought, but the best for humans are Toka, Black Ice, Alderman. I think Alderman is a university variety. Pudina, and then Mount Royal. So Black Ice and Toka I've seen at nurseries, very prevalent, but those are really good plum varieties for it. Nanking cherry, another plant that I think I've tried those in my landscape. I live further west of Mankato. I office Mankato. I live further west in St. James, and I've had a lot of winter kill on this type of plant, but if you're in a protected area, you're probably good. Hazelnuts, I have planted lots of those over the years. It seems like maybe that might need to be a rejuvenation type cut or coppice back to after 8 or so many years to rejuvenate the planting, but great plant to plant and windbreaks and different shrub type areas. American cranberry. I'm surprised many of my berries are still on the plant from last winter. Usually the robins gobble them up in the spring if there's any left, but there's still some around. This is aronia berry or black chokeberry with a B, berry, not cherry, berry, chokeberry. And high in antioxidants, very good health-wise. Have to probably beat the birds to them, but very good plant to plant in a food forest or your backyard. Here's elderberry that is there's an elderberry co-op in Minnesota that if you want to grow large amounts of these, they will actually market the flowers, I think, and then obviously take the seines and use the berries for juice. And I think they work with a Missouri company to market juice into Hy-Vee stores or grocery stores and so forth. So just look up Minnesota Elderberry Co-op. Raspberries, for food forest or for home use, I usually recommend the fall primocanes because you can mow them off in the fall or else mow them off in the spring. You can prune them down to the ground basically. You don't have to be um, kind of temperamental about leaving the live canes or for the other type summer producing berries, plants. There's kind of two different plant structures, I guess, or plant varieties that you want to be aware of. But I always recommend the fall producing and then the primocane type varieties that you can actually prune down to nothing in each fall time of the year, or else in the springtime. This is a fruit company that I found to be fairly useful. It used to be called, I think, Ag Enterprises or something, but asparagus, raspberries, rhubarb, strawberries, blueberries, and fruits. Fruits Now is the name of the company. Honeyberry is kind of a new haskap, blue honeysuckle, although it's not the honeysuckle that's invasive, but those are different names that you can find more information about honeyberry. There's a Honeyberry USA nursery close to Duluth that grows them and sells them online. But yeah, kind of a neat little type of berry plant. I've not known them to be good for juices or, well, juice might be okay, but I mean, uh, the preserves, jellies and jams and so forth. But almost fresh eating is really good. And they're not tart, they're very good, delicious. The big thing about honeyberry, this pollination chart, there's a bunch of different varieties, and you really have to sync your varieties with a pollinator variety. So if you have two of the same plant, two tundras will not pollinate each other. So you need a Cinderella, let's say, for the far right, with a tundra, or borealis and with a Cinderella and so forth. You need to match up your different pollinator plants. So be aware of that. And here's a lot of University of Saskatchewan has done some research on haskaps, and you can find out more information about that research if you like. So pest management in food forests is a big thing. A number of pests could infest edible fruits and nuts. Before planting a food forest, plants with minimal pests should be considered. Volunteer groups could help manage them. SWT, spotted wing Drosophila, is a big pest for many of our raspberry plants and some of our other fruits. So be aware of that. Protective woody stems in the wintertime, rabbits and deer, as we just showed you a few pictures of, and then consider educational kiosks for areas and areas. So our forestry team and extension, University of Minnesota Extension, has developed a climate-ready woodlands, actually recommended trees that for all parts of Minnesota. And we're using the eco regions that the DNR uses. So you can click on those and at our website and wherever you live in Minnesota, you can find what trees we're recommending for warmer climates in your area. Along with that, we have an excellent resource booklet, Minnesota Harvester Handbook for you foragers out there. And there's different types of topics. Here's the topics here. We have the table of contents by products and season, basic tips and social markets and policy. Permits are usually required, and certainly ask permission for the properties that you search for foraging. We have 8 edible mushrooms, 6 bark, sticks, and woods, 4 edible greens and berries, and 4 holiday decorations, and talk about saps and syrups in that book. There's a really good perennial fruit notebook for a lot of different odd fruits and nuts, and that's available just our Z link, z.umn.edu/perennial fruit, and that is the fruits that's covered in there. And we talked about a few, but we haven't talked about hardy kiwi, but we talked about aronia berry. Choke cherries we haven't talked much about. The currants, elderberry, goji berries. I think Ryan Murphy, I think, has said he hasn't tasted a good goji berry yet. So and then Josta berries, I think I saw those at the nursery. So I'm gonna have to maybe try one of those and see how good they are. But honeyberries, Haskap blue honeysuckle is another name for those, and then Nanking cherries and more in that book. Again, there's our PDF booklet or just a front and back fact sheet. You can email myself or Sonia if you want a copy. We'll send you out a PDF. This is Catherine Burkowski's Virginia Tech Community Food Forest Handbook. So if you're into community food forest and want to learn more about it, or just to get a book to look at what she studied around the country, what works, what doesn't, and policies and different things, it's a great resource. Here's some other resources that we have Z links to. I'm kind of a king of Z links at our extension forestry team, but you can certainly gather more information there. And again, we don't have PDF linkages to these websites, but do reach out to Sonia or myself if you want that PDF of our fruits and nuts bulletin. The Minnesota Harvey talks about varieties that were created and developed at the University of Minnesota. It's a great website if you want to learn more about those particular horticultural and fruit hardy Minnesota vegetables, or excuse me, fruits that were developed at the University of Minnesota. It's a great website. Hey, how about a windbreak cookbook from North Dakota State University? There you go. I actually have some in my office. Maybe I'll bring some, Sonia, to you and Ryan to distribute to some of your members there. I'm gonna keep some for the Master Gardener Conference coming up. But yeah, they developed a windbreak cookbook kind of from North Dakota State University. You can gather it from PDF there from that website. Yeah, some of the common fruits and nuts that we talked about in this presentation. Want to just remind people that Angie Gupta, one of our forest educators, developed this information on eco-anxiety. You think about the green ash trees and emerald ash borer. You either have to treat your trees or you have to cut them down. So that's kind of bring a lot of stress to our homeowners and so forth. And there's a lot of disease and insect problems in some of our gardens and some of the fruit and nut trees that we have. So it's just an interesting publication. So there's a Z link down there for her website and to get this PDF as well. You can either email me or Angie. But yeah, it's a Z link there to get more information. She's got a website up now. Angie Gupta also is in charge of our participatory science projects, and we have some tree projects that we're wanting people to notify her and the group, and their current projects are going on there. You can just do a tips.umn.edu/current, and there is Angie's email address that you can email her and ask for more information too. And just a few more slides on references and resources. This is the National Agroforestry Center down in Lincoln, Nebraska, has a great wealth of information, and they've got really nice handouts. If you need some handouts on agroforestry or any of these non-timber forest products, they've got some handouts that are free. They can be mailed to you, and this is part of our Forest Service and USDA and government agencies that are working together on this, and pretty cool. And they've got some, obviously these elderberry, hazelnut, persimmon, pawpaw, pussy willow, dogwoods are covered in this non-timber forest product calculator. And just a few nurseries, just two nurseries to mention. I mentioned the Iowa DNR nursery that has some great trees to plant in southern Minnesota, maybe even northern Minnesota. Here's northern pecan. How about that? That they're selling in Iowa, and they're almost basically a conservation type purchase. You do have to buy about 25 trees at a time, but they're almost like $1 a tree. So I'd urge you to look at that, and anybody from Minnesota can purchase these trees as well. How about that? This is Canopy Nursery out of Wisconsin, and this is a sister company to the Savannah Institute. If you've heard of Savannah Institute, it's a nonprofit agroforestry and type of organization out of Madison, Wisconsin. But here they have elderberries, they've got chestnuts, and they've got a heart nut. That's a heart nut It's a Japanese walnut that looks like the seed shaped as a heart. Pretty cool. And then pawpaws and persimmons, and then some willows there that they're selling. So if you're interested in maybe planting a chestnut in the future, or a pawpaw or a persimmon, there might be a location. I hear pawpaws are growing in the Twin Cities. I'm not sure where they get their sources from, but maybe Bachman's or Bailey's and Gerton's and different nurseries are selling some of those plants around the Twin Cities. And that is it. So if you have any questions, or if there's questions in the chat, I did run through my 99 slides very quickly, and sorry about that. If you blinked, you might have missed a slide, but yeah, I kind of like to show things. Showing is better than trying to talk about it.
Well, thank you very much, Gary. We give you an applause
Thanks.
digitally. And so we have a number of questions. Just one
Sure.
thing I would like to mention is all the links that Gary's mentioned and a couple that were in the chat but not in the presentation will be posted with the recording of this on our MinStack YouTube playlist, which is hosted by the U of M. So I put that link in the chat. Great. And hopefully that'll be up by next week. And then, Gary, we have a few questions.
Sure.
First one is, how were the signs constructed next to the plants? So this goes back to the beginning. She asked, Beth asked, were there laminated sheets with metal wire? Were they made each year? Signage is always a question and is so important.
Yes. Yes, that's a great question. They are kind of
Oh,
plastic. Oh, sorry.
no, sorry. Oh,
I can stop sharing too. There's my email address. If you want to email me questions, or Sonia, she can get a hold of me too. Let me stop sharing, and yeah, we can do a different gallery here. Okay. Yes. The signage is not laminated. It's one of those plastic pieces. It's almost like a farm sign for corn and soybeans that you see out in the field. They're plastic, but they have holes in them. And I think actually, no, it's not one of the burn ones that Gary Johnson had. They're perforated in the middle, so you can poke a signage through. I think you go to any sign company, they might have that available, but it's like a very thin plastic, but it's got holes in it, and you stick the rods of the metal in there, and you just stick it in the ground, and it's waterproof, and it's just really nice. And I can't remember the cost of those. We just got them printed up. I think the regional partnerships did that. Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships put those together. Yeah. I can get back to you on maybe where that was done, and maybe the cost too later. If you email me, please email me, just Wyatt@umn.edu.
Next one is comes from Barb. How do these community gardens deal with disease and insects of fruit trees preventatively? Things like apple maggot, separate things than the bunny and deer protection.
Yes, that's a very good question. I'm not sure if they'd use the jugs of the different formulations to draw them in or not. That's a great question. I didn't do any survey, or I didn't read Catherine's book on the handbook of those organic controls or non-chemical controls, but you're right. That's up to the group that's managing the property. But yeah, all those are available certainly. And yeah, you probably don't want to spray on a community garden to prevent that, but that is a possibility.
Another one comes from Luther. Luther's planting hazelnuts for the first time, hazelnut trees. So are there any planting tips for this spring, or do you know of any?
I think is it a tree then? Is he has a hazelnut tree?
I believe so.
Yes,
Hazelnut
there's some Turkish hazelnut trees out there. Yes. I've got one in my landscape. It's very slow growing, but I'd say full sun, and I'd say protect from the rabbits. Make sure you have some type of tree tube at the base or something for rabbit control. Um, I don't think I'd fertilize it the first year or so, but yeah, probably full sun is recommended for the hazelnuts.
And that goes for American hazelnuts. and those varieties as
Yeah,
well as
yeah,
the.
yes. I have a couple of that are shaded by a native tree of mine that I probably shouldn't have planted there, but yeah. So almost everything likes full sun. So all those fruit and nut trees.
Gary, there was the pollinator chart for honeyberries. Do you know if that's accessible online somewhere? I couldn't
You
find it
know,
myself.
I imagine it is. I wonder if Honeyberry USA might have one of those. Any nursery that sells these plants should have that or know the relationship of those. And I can send you a copy too if you'd like. You can email me or email Sonia and yeah, but yeah, that is interesting. I did see one. I think I did notice one. No, that was just on apple trees. I guess it was just on a chart on apple trees, but I thought I saw one at maybe, oh, I did see one. I think on the Runnings Nursery out in Western Minnesota. I think they had a link to the chart there. It was pretty cool.
Cool. Thank you. And thank you. Someone
Thank
just
you.
let me know that the ISA link was access denied. So it should have been, I of course didn't click a button, so it should be open now. Let me know.
Oh,
And then
good.
last question, are nanny berries a good addition to an edible garden?
Yeah, I think so. Nanny berries, I think you try it. I always tell people if you're interested in something, try it. Don't order maybe 100 of them, but and as long as it's not on the invasive species list or the noxious Minnesota noxious weed list, then go ahead and order some. I always tell people you probably should get two, just for pollination reasons, maybe. And most of these are self-pollinating plants, but you probably need two for most of them. And then obviously on the cherries and the pears, I think you need two plants. So be aware of those types of arrangements for pollination.
And then another question popped up. Stefan says, I have a Nanking cherry, but it's never produced fruit. Are some of them sterile or does it need special pollination? So,
Wow, that's a great question. I haven't had a lot, but I've always got winter kill on my Nanking cherries. And yeah, that's a great question. I would get another one and yeah, just see if you can find another plant and then plant it pretty close to that other one and see if that would help. If you don't have two or three. I always recommend, yeah, some of those might need a another plant to pollinate each other.
great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gary. Thank you to everyone for attending today and have a wonderful week on behalf of MinStack, the Minnesota Shade Tree Advisory Committee. And we will have this up and posted next week.
Thanks, Sonia.